quad or lever cylinder? What? Okay, never mind.
What? Wait, what?
I was gonna say, what products do you use in your hair? And I'm just ready for the answer to be.
Okay, everybody, welcome to In the Studio with Crash Acting. Today we have Sol, who is an instructor at Crash Acting, scene study class, and I am so thrilled for this. Here's the thing, Sol. You've heard me say this, I've said it to you, I'm not shy about it. You're one of the best teachers I've ever seen. And I'm enormously selective, and I'm not saying that to make you happy. I'm not saying that because I'm scared of you. I'm saying that because I believe it. And you have this enormous ability to guide people into things that are scary for them and leave them feeling better than when they came. And you also have such a unique perspective on the industry. You work a lot in the industry. You work a lot as a coach in the industry. But when you're in the room as a teacher, all of these things come together into a very powerful presence. So I'm so happy you're here. I'm so happy for everyone to get to know you and how you work as a teacher. So enough of that. We both have curly hair.
Yes.
We're going to talk about that in a second. But
It's
before we do,
a requirement to teach.
it's a requirement to teach at Crash Acting. You've got to have curly hair.
test it.
Everybody, yeah. But before we get to the important stuff, who are you? Where do you come from? How did you get here?
Yeah.
What does teaching mean to you? Tell us about yourself.
Well, first, I just want to say thank you for having me, and I'm so honored by your words. It really is a privilege to, I mean, even when I was subbing for you a couple weeks, it really did feel like a privilege to be in that seat, you know? And I use a lot of yoga analogies and a lot of like athletic mind analogies. And so I always refer to it as like in yoga, the asana is called a seat. And so I'm like, oh, being in the teacher's seat is it's a very privileged, not like privilege like I'm on top, but privilege of like, what an honor to be here. So anyway.
That's wonderful.
Okay, who am I? Where am I from? I am from Puerto Rico. And I lived there until I was 18, and then I went to New York to study theater at NYU, and then I lived there until I was not 18 anymore. I can't even remember. I spent, 24 years in New York, and then moved to LA about 2 years ago now, in July. How did I get here is I had been out of school for a really long time, but I had been working a lot in New York, doing a lot of theater in New York, specifically doing developmental work. So a workshop of a new play that would only be 2 weeks. And so you're sitting around the table and you're sort of like helping the playwright frame their story. And I loved doing that. It really taught me a lot about script analysis. And character development and all of that stuff. And so because I was working constantly, I didn't sort of have a need, or I don't know, I didn't feel like a scene study was a right fit for me because I was just working. And when I got to LA, even though I know people here that were in LA already, I felt like I wanted a community. Like honestly, I just wanted a community. And a lot of the things that you were saying and a lot of sort of the philosophies here at Crash were very much in alignment with something that I was searching for, which is, I remember the day that I came to audit, I was feeling a very big disconnect between, I don't feel like I'm in my body. Especially coming from such a physical theater training at experimental theater at NYU, where it was all about the connection to the body, sometimes body first. And, it was very much like you can actually work inside out, outside in, either one of those. So I felt like I didn't have a handle on that, or sort of just felt disconnected. And I don't know, maybe it's also theater actors that start working on film and TV. There's a different sort of, literally a frame that we are using that is different than a theatrical frame, right? In theater, they can see every single thing, and right now they're only seeing that. So it is a different shift. And so maybe, because I know I have a lot of clients who are theater actors who come into the studio to work on camera, and they say the same thing, I'm too big, but it's not that. Anyway, but maybe in me it caused a little bit of disconnect.
Yeah.
So when I got here, it really started to make sense that, oh, there is no disconnect. I have maybe I just need to sort of find the breadcrumbs again. Yeah.
Tell me about, because I think it's very important to say that you're also a student here.
Yes.
Which is important because to me, we're cultivating a space where the teaching is not top down
Correct.
at all. And so I think it's unique and probably difficult, but unique to say that the teachers in the space are in fact also students of the work that's happening.
Yeah.
And I think this cultivates a different level of equanimity and different level of creativity and stuff. It's really, it's a wonderful thing that you're here, and I think we want to say that. But there's another thing. You do.
Well, and that also that there's no level 1 class and level 2 and advanced acting. There's none of that as well. I mean, which is unheard of.
Yes, I know. People ask me all the time, like, wait, can I? But there's no pyramid, and that's very important about crash acting, and it's been like that from the very beginning. In what is the norm is, is that you would start at here and you'd work your way up to the
like
master
an intro
class.
to something. And no matter how practiced you are, you have to start at the intro.
Start there. And that can really create an environment that's kind of toxic because everybody's trying to get to the top class or whatever. And that mirrors what's wrong about the industry.
Correct.
And so to deconstruct that pyramid and create something new has been a whole lot of fun. It's very unique.
Yeah.
It's really wonderful. And for you to now become a part of this feels so good to me. You came into the space as an enormously experienced actor, but you also came into the space as an enormously experienced teacher. So can you talk about that, how these two things in your life have come together and what it is you're coming into the space with as a teacher?
Yeah. So I gotta say, I don't admit this to many people. I don't know why, but when I had applied for, I applied to NYU, I think I applied to Boston University and DePaul and, big acting schools. And I remember I had people in my family, out of my family, people who would be like, well, you need something to fall back on, so you should study education. Right. And I'm like, great, thanks for not believing me. I won't be doing that. I don't want anything to do with education ever.
Yes.
But education is huge in my family. My parents have PhDs and my grandparents had master's degrees when that was unheard of. It's a big deal. So I remember when I was graduating or, close to graduating from college that my mom was like, do anything except wait tables.
Wow.
Do anything except wait tables. And she was like, I just don't want you to be another statistic.
Right.
And I was like, that's okay. And so I've never waited tables.
Wow.
I think I've tried to get jobs at restaurants, and because I've never waited tables.
No, you can't.
I can't. Not good at it. Not good at it. But what I was good at was going into school settings and like doing, anything from camp counseling, all of that stuff. But one of my first jobs after college, was working as a teaching artist. And so sometimes some arts organizations, it means that you're working alongside the English department's curriculum. And so, the kids are studying, the Scottish play, we'll bring in this group of actors to do that. Some arts organizations are sort of like they bring in the troupe to create stories with the students. This was sort of life skills building. So we would go into public schools in New York and bring them, little skits on communication and anti-bullying and all of these things. Sometimes it was tied to a curriculum, but rarely was it tied to a curriculum. From that program, I started working with the parent program. So then we were bringing life skills to PTA meetings and to immigrant parents, and I was having to translate back and forth. And I mean, what that did was it taught me to navigate the subway system, first of all. And so honestly, if you can navigate the subway system in New York, you can make it anywhere, truly.
This is very true.
You can navigate Paris, Tokyo, London.
Yes.
They're all based off the same model. But it also taught me that it's not necessarily, I'm not coming in as like an actor and performing. It's sort of like, here I am reflecting something back to you. What can you receive from that? So that was really fun. And then from there, we did corporate workshops, JP Morgan, again, a diversity workshop for JP Morgan where we would create a skit, right? And then it's sort of based off of Augusto Boal's Forum Theater. So you freeze it at the end, there's no ending, and then you charge the audience with coming up with a solution. And we would go into Rikers Island, which is the infamous prison in New York City. And we would go into the high schools there and do life skills workshops there.
Wow.
Yeah. So it taught me a lot of resiliency, and it taught me that that there's more to this acting thing than just this acting thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah. What is it? Tell me. Yes, you're right. That's such a beautiful recognition. There's more to it than just the hustle of the job or the stuff.
Yeah. Like I'm in a play right now, and I love performing. I'm having such a wonderful time. I'm so grateful every time I step on stage. And yet, it's almost like what we do here in the studio. It's just like it's the microcosm of it. It's the transformation of it. It's the resiliency and the vulnerability that we're seeing when someone is up there just giving it their all. And the beauty of it is that, you know, I might receive something differently than you did, and we're sitting next to each other, and we're the same age, and we have curly hair. So, right, so one should assume that we're receiving the same lesson, you know, or the same message. So I think that's what it is. I don't know.
Yeah, it's much bigger than we tend to give it credit for being.
Yeah.
I find that's true, that a lot of people think acting is much smaller than I find it to be. And they treat it like it's this thing that's just about a job or just about their resume.
Correct.
And so many in Los Angeles, and New York too, so many people move to Los Angeles or New York in pursuit of their dreams, only to get there and make the size of their dreams as microscopic as possible. And so acting becomes this little bitty thing that they're either good at or bad at or did, and they don't realize that it's just an entry into deep, deep, profound self-knowing and study and artistry, and it just is like an endless well of wonderful things that can sometimes become so transactional you can't even see it anymore.
Right.
Oof.
Right. But which is why I like to say that what we do here is the practice of this process. So that, you know, on the day that you come in and your agent didn't like your headshots, that you spent $800. And so how do you navigate that? So how are you bringing sort of the external life stuff? How is that informing your acting? And how is your acting informing your life stuff?
Yeah.
Because if you're treating this as just transactional, that's probably where it will stay. But if you're coming in here to class and you're treating this as a practice of process, then I don't know, I find like it starts to reflect out back to you in your life as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen it for sure.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
So what would you say acting is? What is acting?
Cool. Let me take a sip of
just
my
real quick, take a sip of the water.
lukewarm
We'll
water.
vamp. We'll talk about curly hair.
What is acting? The audacity. What is acting? I really do think that it's a process of transformation. Because here's the thing, I don't know. Okay, I'm gonna just start talking. It's the process of transformation because how can I say that this Shakespeare monologue is more important than this Burger King commercial? When I know that the person who wrote this copy is probably at home with a 5-year-old kid that they need to, you know what I mean? And they're up at night getting this copy perfect so that they can give it to the agency, that the agency gives it to casting brings us in, and you are out there it's just, how can I think that I am more important than that whole thing that just happened?
Wow.
And then how can I say that this Shakespeare monologue or the play that I'm doing is more important than putting up a scene in class? I don't think it is. I don't think they're different.
So it sounds like you're saying that something about acting is in deconstructing the ego's need to be better than, or to do, and so you're even talking about connecting Shakespeare to a Burger King audition. And I mean, in some ways that would seem like sacrilegious almost, like these aren't the same, but in the transformational aspect of it, there's something similar to you.
Yeah, because, we talk a lot about the 4 levels of reading here. And so, shoot, I dare everyone, their next commercial audition, to read it anagogically.
Right.
And that was something that was transformative for me.
Right.
The fact that a lot of what's happening in the industry does feel very transactional. Not all of it, certainly, but a lot of it does. And so to sort of have the intention of, because I mean, you can't have that as an objective. I'm going to be transformational.
Right.
I'm going to transform you, Ben. No, but to have an intention of, let it transform me and maybe it'll transform others. I do think it is a process of transformation.
Yeah, that's wonderful. That's so good, because you're talking about these 4 levels of reading, and if you've been in class, it's a literal level of reading, which is kind of that top level of reading. There's the allegorical level of reading. We're getting into some metaphor. The tropological level of reading, the moral of the story. And this anagogical level of reading is where the mystical level of reading, where things really come to life and can ignite a real transformation in the actor. And if that's not a part of the process, then it's very difficult to get down into the depths, even in a Burger King commercial.
Yes. But I like to think of it that way, because one of the things that does happen when I read anagogically is that I am sort of feeling like I'm in communion with the spirit of creativity that ignited the person who wrote this.
Yeah.
And so how can I say that Shakespeare had a deeper sense of that creative spirit than that person who's also trying to live their life through writing?
Wow. And this comes up in your teaching. This would inform your teaching.
I think, yeah.
I think, yeah. That's good. So the thing about my hair.
Let's talk about it.
Let's talk about hair is as important as Shakespeare. And I promise this is going to segue. I was asked once when I was younger. I was at this event in Knoxville, Tennessee. And this young man came up to me and said, "Can I talk to you?" And he came up very seriously. "Can I talk to you?" And I was like, "Sure." He goes, "Well, can I do it when we're alone?" And I don't know this guy. And so I thought, are you going to, is this you going to confess something to me? I felt very serious.
Wait, how old were you?
I was about to move to New York. I was 24.
Okay.
Or something like that. 24 maybe, 23, 24. And he would have been 16, 17. And he had curly hair and comes up to me and says, "Can I talk to you?" And he was dead serious. I thought, oh my gosh, he's going to confess. Because he knew us from out of town. So that night, we were at this reception and he says, "Do you have a second?" And I'm like, sure, yeah, whatever. And we go outside and he's dead serious. And he says, "Can you keep this between us?" And I'm thinking, of course. And he says, "Okay, what do you put in your hair?"
I love this. And
I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I can talk about that. It was like, so I told him. I don't remember what it was then.
Yeah.
I don't remember what it was now. But now I think it's called Bumble and Bumble something, curl something.
Sure.
But I don't know, I think that's what it's called.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Listen, but at 16 or 17, however old this kid was, to come up to you and to be like, "I have to ask you a question that maybe I would get fun of."
Yes, for sure.
For asking.
Yes.
I love that.
And it's so important because I see now that something I see in you as a teacher, something I hope to be true about me as a teacher, is less about the information that I give somebody and more about the space I create that they may ask the question they need.
Yes.
And so even in this moment, it's so silly to look back on, and I can laugh now, but it wasn't about what do I use in my hair.
Yes.
It was about creating the space where he felt he could ask the question that he could ask nobody else.
Yes.
And I see you do that. And I see how you are around people. And I think it's a very important thing for an acting studio, because it isn't that we have so much to teach. It's that we have a space where the questions you have can be brought forth.
Yeah.
And that's how we grow.
Yeah.
There's no amount of information. I guess information, I wouldn't say teaching is not the delivery of information.
No.
It's not what you can read that in a book.
Right.
There's more going on when you find a place like this. So I want to dive in, actually, before we do, because I want to get to these questions, but we're doing something very unique here in the way that we're teaching. And I want to describe it and then get your take on it,
Okay.
too. We get asked a lot, what do we teach? What do you teach at Crash Acting? What's the method? Whatever it is. And that's a tough thing to talk about. Because I don't teach what I was taught, you know, and it's not like we're copy pasting another teacher's work into our process or anything. I would rather emulate what those teachers did, which is come up with something and advance the tradition. But the way we describe it a lot is that it's a non-dominant approach to acting that brings the actor into greater equanimity with the character and restores a sense of their autonomy in this work, which is so important to me. And that was important to me because I don't want to be with you everywhere. I'm not going to be with you on set. I'm not going to be with you everywhere. I want the actors to know this is my process. This is how I'm working. This is how I make sense of the text and how I bring that to life. And the non-dominant element is that I would have been taught, and maybe you were too, a very Russian approach to the work by many ways, delivered to us by certain teachers, who are wonderful but limited, where you would impose your will on the character. You'd make choices for them. You'd choose their objectives. You would tell them what they're going to do. Then you go do what you've decided they're doing. Correct. And this is how I find is very traditional. This, to me, dehumanizes the character because I'm telling you what to do, and I wouldn't treat a loved one that way. I don't want to treat a character that way. And so this non-dominant approach forces us to ask different questions, look in different ways. It brings up different stuff. And it's been a whole lot of fun to strip away the traditional way things are done and to see what's left. What do we have to reconcile here? And how can we do it without imposing ourselves, but meeting character as equals? Yeah. And so that's what's been in practice at the studio. How do you make sense of this?
You know, you asked me this in class the other day because I'm doing a play and I'm bringing in I'm still in class and I think you asked, so how is this, you know, showing up in now in your professional work? And to me, it's just really brought up a sense of efficiency. And I don't mean efficiency as sort of like quick and easy, although certainly it's part of that. But efficiency as in, I don't actually have to effort my way or struggle struggle my way. I don't have to struggle my way through this process, which I think, living in New York and doing theater in New York, there's very much a struggling artist, starving artist, sort of like brooding, dark, and your traumas being, you're informing your actor by all of that. And so I think what being here at Crash has done for me is really given me a sense of a more efficient way to work for my own nervous system. And I think it really does have to do with this non-dominant approach because I don't necessarily have to spend hours thinking about my objectives and making bold choices. If I just read what's on the page and let that inform my body, my body's moving every time I say this, or every time I say this word, a color comes up. This scene that I did on Monday, every time I said parakeets, I saw flashes of neon green. That's all I need. That's all you need.
Wow.
And so if you're working in this way, it's non-dominant. It allows me to maintain my own creativity. And yet, if I am in a play working with a director and a director gives you an adjustment, you can do the adjustment. Rather than, but I created this, I spent hours on these objectives and these choices and this thing. And how are you going to tell me? It's, okay, fine, I'll do it your way. So
none of that. It removes the defensiveness of it all. Yeah, that's so good.
And then it brings it back. It's not necessarily about me, but it's about how are we now transforming the space, the story, et cetera, et cetera.
Because you can't really collaborate if you're not in your autonomy. If you don't have your own creative thing moving, you can't really work with anybody else.
Right.
That's great. Yeah. So let's get into some of these questions.
Let's do it.
Okay. All right, here's the first one. Any mindset tips for actors? Mindset tips.
Okay. I was gonna do an IG post for this, but I'll do it here. Because I recently was thinking about that I've had some opportunities, like I've been called up to the majors, but I've had a minor league mindset.
Oh, okay.
And so for me, it's really about, well, I should start having a major league mindset now. So the next time I'm called up to the majors, I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that a lot of actors can start using, because there is such competition created. There's such a narrative of competition in the industry. There's such a like, well, who's your agent and what are you doing? And you're working. There's so much of that. But I think if you start to sort of plan for yourself or dream for yourself or just think of like, well, I want to get there. And it's not necessarily about like all the steps I need to take to get there, but more about what will that feel like and look like?
Right.
How will my breath change when I'm there?
Right.
So I would say having a major league mindset
And
or being ready, stay ready so that you don't have to get ready. Just
right.
part of that is being in class. Part of that is seeing theater, watching films, reading plays, not just old dead white men, but like reading new playwrights,
stuff,
just like being in it, being what you want your world to be. When that happens, just start creating it now. Why not?
That's so good, because there is a sense that one day I have like future-itis or one day-itis when I get there.
Yeah.
And as long as you're assuming that you're not there already,
Yes.
then
Yes.
you're going to feel like I'm not prepared when I do get there.
Correct.
That's great.
Yeah.
I love that in the major leagues. How New York of you to have a baseball reference.
We won't get into that. The comments will blow up.
That's true. I think mindset's so important for the actor. In so many ways, I find it difficult to create something you can't envision first. And if your mindset is cloudy, you can't see the world you want to create.
Yeah.
And this perspective you're bringing to this major league mindset, I love so much because it challenges me to take myself seriously.
Right.
To know that I belong there, whether I'm there yet or not, but to know that inside myself I am.
Yeah, and it's not a sort of like delusional, I'm going to make it,
No.
that sort of like rose-colored glasses, but it's more of just like, how can I start to envision that? And this is something athletes do all the time.
Yeah.
You see gymnasts before they're running down that speedway, they're playing their routine in their head.
Yeah.
They definitely are. So it's I think it's a very, I don't know, it's a very crucial thing
Yeah,
to
I
think
think it
about.
is.
Yeah.
That's great. I'm going to keep
Okay,
going.
let's keep
Oh,
going.
do you want to ask? No, I'm asking you a question.
No, it's fine. I don't know.
What do you look for in an acting studio?
What do I look for in an acting studio?
Like if somebody's auditing classes in Los Angeles or New York or anywhere, what are some things that
Okay.
are good signs that they're
Look,
in a healthy place?
When I talk about Crash, first of all, when I first started coming to Crash as a student, it was really hard for me to explain. It was just like, you just gotta go. You just gotta come. Yeah. But now I've been to other studios, and it really is about the space. It really is about the space. Now I have someone who was not in the arts at all and was like, is it like Barry? Is it like the show?
Is it like Barry the show?
Right?
Yes,
And I'm
I get asked that sometimes.
I get that, but we're not in some like
No.
rinky-dink black box theater
Yeah,
somewhere. It's curated. Everything is on purpose. It's like you said, we want you to come in and really feel like you can ask the questions that you might not be able to ask.
Yeah.
So what do I look for in a studio? I look for being welcomed. I look for being welcomed. I remember I would used to sit in the back, and that sort of ended quickly because the people in the studio themselves sort of didn't stand for it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's hard to sort of be standoffish in a class like this. But I have been to other classes where it's very much like, boom, I'm here for class, and like my hair's done, my makeup's done, and you sort of like, I'm here for a job rather than I'm here for a class.
Right.
So that's interesting. And I do think it's about the space that's being created. I do think it's because it's non-hierarchical. I just want to come in here, even on the days when I'm not putting up work. I want to come in here and feel good about myself.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I just
yeah.
want to come in, be with people who are like-minded, who are also in this major league mentality,
Mm-hmm.
and do good work. And it oozes support.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. I really feel that. I don't get a sense of, whoa, well, she put up a great scene today. She must be Ben's favorite. She must be Sol's favorite.
Mm-hmm.
I have never felt that here, ever.
Yeah, that can become very toxic very quick, and it's easy to cultivate in an acting class.
Yes.
I've definitely been in classes where the culture was about pleasing the teacher or
Yes.
getting the approval or
Yeah.
working your way up, and that creates a very competitive place.
Right.
And I love competition, but that's not the competition that empowers anybody. That's the competition that tends to tear us down. And that, to me, it's like it harkens back to an older age in this
Right.
industry where it was a top-down approach.
Right.
And it cultivates something different, I
Yeah.
think. It's very good. Okay, I'm going to keep asking questions. What does it really mean to be vulnerable? I guess from an acting point of view or what have you. What does it mean to be vulnerable?
To be seen.
To be seen, yeah.
To allow yourself to be seen, I think. It's really tough.
Talk to me.
It's
What,
really
what
tough.
are we hiding from? What is it? How do you do it?
I don't know. I don't know. But to really allow yourself to be seen, and I think you can be in some spaces and not be seen. You can be in some spaces and be the life of the party and still not be seen. There's this really beautiful practice in Japanese culture, and I won't say the name because I will butcher it, but I believe it starts with a K, for those of you who know. But it's about mending broken ceramic with gold.
Yeah, right.
How beautiful to not throw the bowl away because it broke, but to carefully mend it together with something that will make it probably even better than it was.
Yeah.
I just love that.
Yeah, I put myself in the position of the bowl
Yeah.
and how vulnerable it must be to recognize that I'm broken
And they might throw me away.
and they might throw me away. And that act of being seen as cracked
Yes.
is the vulnerable
Yes.
moment to be
Yes.
seen.
Yes.
And the risk we take is to be seen as cracked only to be revealed as completely whole.
Yes.
And that's hard. Okay, that's good. All right. I'm gonna keep going. What's a standout lesson that a past acting teacher gave you, or past teacher of any kind? Like, what's something that you draw from, that you have been taught, that changed the way you see things?
Well, I can't say view, right?
No, that would be strange.
That would be weird. That would be weird. You told me about your hair product.
I did the hair product thing. This is a
transformational.
transformational change.
I don't know. You know, interesting. So I'm doing this play and it's set in a school and I'm playing the principal. And so we had a huddle last night before the show and the directors asked us to close our eyes and think back to the age that we were the same age that the kid is in the play. It was like 14, 15, ninth grade. And so I'm thinking back on my ninth grade teachers. And so they're asking us, well, think back on the teachers you had when you were around that age and anyone who's made an impact on you. And the first time they asked that question, I thought of my Spanish teachers at Colegio San Antonio, if you must know, in Rio Piedras, Puerto Rico. They were absolutely brilliant. I mean, they could have taught at a university. They were so brilliant. And the next time they asked the question, I thought about my track coach.
Wow.
And I have not thought about him in a really long time.
Wow.
And I've had many teachers in my life. Some of my friends are my best teachers. My partner, Mike, my husband, is a teacher. So I also want to sort of recognize that there are teachers all around you if you are open for the lesson.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't really think of like a one pivotal moment or a one pivotal lesson.
What did your track coach give you? Who were you before you met him? Who were you after?
I was puny, both like in size. I was like a toothpick. I was so skinny. And just like also very shy and just I was awkward. But I was fast. And I've been running since I was probably 7 years old. So I've been doing it for a long time. And he never gave up on me. I wasn't always the fastest, as I was a sprinter, so I wasn't always the fastest because I wasn't strong. And he never gave up on me. And he knew that my, I'm thinking in Spanish, my aportación, the best fit for me is, so like when you have the 4x1 relay, everyone runs 100 meters. So I wasn't going to be strong on the straightaways in that competition necessarily. But I was good on the curve. And so here's the thing, it's like, people just think, oh, you just run fast shoot the gun, you run fast.
Yeah.
There's skill involved, there's strategy involved, it's more nuanced than that. So Coach Rentas, he gave me a space to really grow, because then I got stronger and stronger, and I believed in myself because he believed in me. And he was like, yeah, you're not good here, kid, but here, this is where you're gonna shine, and let me teach you how.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a huge lesson.
Yeah.
How does that show up in the way you teach actors?
I probably do the same.
Yeah.
Like, this is where you shine, let's teach you how. And also, like, I think for me, it's really important to create a space where people come in and can do their best work. Because if the space is not conducive for that, you will never get the best work out of anyone.
Right.
I don't care who you are.
Yeah.
And then you'll create situations where it's like, oh, I heard so-and-so, so difficult to work with. Or maybe they had to set some boundaries because the set was crazy.
Yeah.
Or, whatever it is. But I really do think that creating a space where people can come in and do their best work on that day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's really great, because that you basically identifying that this person runs the curve, this person runs the straights, and then creating a space where that cultivates their strength.
Correct.
Instead of putting them in the place that reminds them of their weakness.
Right.
And that is such a beautiful lesson that
Yeah.
track coach gave you.
Yeah.
Yeah, you should reach out and tell them that.
I should, yeah. I have not, it's so crazy. I have not thought about, my high school track coach.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
You never know who will impact you.
Yeah.
I'm getting a text from my wife. Okay, so I want to make sure, because we're having a baby soon, and I wanted to make sure that wasn't happening now.
Yeah.
One of my teachers, a voice teacher named Catherine Fitzmaurice, I think she taught me something that changed the way I teach. And I've told this story before, but it's very meaningful. We were looking, she'd ask me to take my shirt off, and I watched me breathe. And so I'd be lying on the floor, and all these people would be watching my ribs move and poking and prodding at me. It was very funny. And after we got past all the giggles, you're watching the mechanics of the breath. And so they would drape me over something, and I'm doing all this stuff. And one workshop in New York, I wasn't the one doing it. It was another guy doing it. And he was on a table. And it's really, really strange to have your shirt off and 30 people looking at you. And so he's giggling and like being all nervous and everything. And I was standing close to Catherine, and we're all watching him wiggle his way through this experience. And there must have been a voice in me that was like, he's so nervous, he's so self-conscious, whatever it was. But the voice in her was very different. She looked at him and she just said, aren't human beings so sweet? And she saw how he was giggling and saw how he was self-conscious, and she didn't have a judgment on it. She saw it as such a sweet human thing. And she's taught me a whole lot of things, but the most important thing she taught me was how to see like that.
Yeah.
And when we see people like that, it sounds like how your track coach saw you. She's so wonderful. Let's put her over here.
Yeah.
And it's one of the central tenets to our work,
Yeah.
is that you can't critique something till you love it.
Correct.
Or till you can see it that way. And then you can see what's beautiful about it, and then you can amplify its beauty.
Yes.
So that's an important moment for me, and I'm hearing that echoed in your coach.
Yeah.
That's
I also
awesome.
want to say, I have to send a shout out to our buddy Eli.
Yes.
Because the very
Yes.
first time that I subbed here, I was so nervous because I wanted to do a good job. I wanted to honor, again, the seat of the teacher, but it was also my own class. I was very nervous, and I kept sort of like dismissing my own insight. And I remember during a break, he was like, "You're killing it up there. You're so good." And I'm like, "Ah." And he said, "Don't do that.
Wow.
Stop doing that. We don't buy it. You're really good." And that changed everything. So Eli,
What a thing. This is a classmate,
correct,
who has in this night is a student,
correct,
and is reinforcing your ability to teach.
Yes.
This to me speaks highly of the room that you're running. It really does, because there's a lot of spaces where to have students teach and teachers be students would kind of, because we're so programmed that the teacher is above us. That's a hard thing to do, but to hear from somebody that you're teaching to tell you that this is something you're sharing that's a gift for us. Keep doing it. That's so wonderful.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah,
Love
yeah.
that. Okay, only a few more questions because
Okay.
you have a play you have to go to.
I have to go to a play.
Okay, so I'm gonna filter these. Okay, here we go. This is the question to end all questions. Someone says, I have a hard time letting go of mistakes I've made. I feel like I'd be in a different place in my career if I had worked harder or handled certain things differently. How do I let go of that?
Wow. Read the question again.
I have a hard time letting go of the mistakes I've made. I feel like I'd be in a different place in my career if I had worked harder or handled certain things differently. How do I let go of stuff? How do I let that stuff go?
There's a line in the play that I'm doing. And she says, mistakes is how we learn in the world. And so, could you imagine never making a mistake? I feel like you wouldn't grow at all.
Right.
What would you
Right.
learn if you
Right.
didn't make mistakes? Now, the attachment to the mistake, that's maybe the thing to look at, right? How do I let go? Because you're not letting go of the mistake. You're letting go of how you feel about it.
Wow.
You're letting go about, well, I could be further along in your career. Maybe,
Right.
maybe not. You are where you are. I could be, it's a sort of like a what if, right? So maybe it's I don't know what's coming up. Is it regret? I don't know what's coming up. But I don't think it's the mistake that you need to let go of. I think it's how you feel about it. That lingering sentiment of, when you think about that moment that embarrassed you or something, and
Yeah.
it's sort of like you feel it again.
Yeah.
That's the thing that needs to, what is this?
That is so good.
Where's the gold that you need to
Yeah.
mend your bowl with?
That's so good. Because it isn't probably the mistake. I mean, in the context of a practice, there's plenty of room for mistake.
Absolutely.
But that detachment from it, that is the hard thing to do.
Absolutely.
That's the hard thing.
Yeah.
Because you just keep playing it over and over and over.
Correct.
That's so good.
Correct.
And now the question I have to ask as follow-up, how do you detach?
Yeah.
How do you do that?
Yeah. Well, I mentioned this in class about how I had that work session with the casting director. And,
Yeah.
and that felt like a major league moment, right? And though the work was good and the work session was good, I was very proud of the work. All the other human elements, it was so awkward and I forgot this and they told me to do this and all of that stuff. How did I let go of that feeling? I think I grounded myself in gratitude. I think I was like so grateful for the opportunity. And honestly, things that we talk about here, gratitude and forgiveness. Grateful for the opportunity, forgiveness for what's about to happen, right? Or forgiveness for what has happened. So grounding in gratitude could be a great way to let go of the lingering feelings of a mistake.
Yeah.
I don't know, dare I even say like a recall, like truly, like why not? Why not just recall your experience? I do this a lot after auditions, where I reflect on not necessarily how well it went, but how did I feel about it?
Yeah.
How did I feel about the work? I felt really joyful in the work, or I don't know, I think.
That's good. That reflection on it gives you something to be grateful for, that experience, and allows you to be accountable for what happened.
Yeah.
Maybe you did make a mistake, and maybe there is something you can fix.
Sure.
Without attaching to the embarrassment that comes with the mistake, maybe, or something.
Yeah.
That's so profound, that gratitude has this power to erase so many sins. Yeah.
Well, yeah, because look, the brain can only handle one thought at a time, truly. Even though I try
Yeah.
to have more, it's only one at a time. And so if you start to sort of rattle off, like right now, if I say I'm grateful for this interview with Ben, I'm grateful to hang out here, I'm grateful for the sun, and you're just starting to rattle off, I guarantee a minute later you'll feel differently. You will be changed. You will be. There's just no way.
What are you most grateful for right now?
Sun.
The sun. Yeah, we haven't had a lot of it.
We haven't
in
had
Los
a lot
Angeles,
of sun.
actually.
No, it's like, move to LA. It's always 70 and sunny. Lies. Lies.
It's gray and cold.
It's so gray and gloomy. What is this, Gotham? I'm grateful for the sun. I'm grateful. Tomorrow we're going to go look at a dog.
Oh, you are?
Yes.
So you're just gonna go look at it?
We're going to look at it and then we're going to leave.
We're gonna leave?
That's all we do. That's all we do is window shopping.
Window shopping
No,
dog?
we're going to go meet a dog. We're going to go.
Oh
meet
my
a dog.
gosh,
Yeah.
this is huge.
Yes.
A puppy, an older dog?
I believe she's 6.
Wow.
She's like half boxer, so she's got like these legs.
Yes.
It's so funny. Yeah.
Dogs are an absolute source of gratitude.
Absolute. Well, that's the other thing I was going to say. Gratitude and joy.
Yeah.
What's the thing that makes you joyful? What's the thing that, like, call your friends, go to the beach, do opposite action. If you're feeling kind of shitty about yourself or about the moment, or I stuck my foot in my mouth, opposite action.
Go the other way. Oh, that's so good.
Yeah.
That's so good. Well, listen, I'm grateful for you, and you make me joyful. So I'm so happy that you're here, that you're teaching, that you can offer us what is so valuable, which is that perspective and that space and that insight. It's so, so good. So thank you so much.
I'm excited. Thank you.
Thursday nights, 5 to 9,
Yeah.
Crash Acting.
Yeah.
So, all right. We'll be back. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Yes!
That was awesome.